Hello and welcome to all of you. I'm very glad to see our esteemed panelists who are here and also all our attendees.
Morning,
This
Anand.
Good morning, Professor Malcolm. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. So we are broadcasting this conference also in the YouTube. And at this point of time, there are 35 participants online and there are some in the YouTube also. But the registrations have been more than 100 already. So generally we notice here in Ghana that many participants, they join after about 30 to 40 minutes of the event. But we will start now. So let me talk a little bit more about this particular conference. So this conference actually is a progeny of our last event we did in June. This event was organized by us by the Bluecrest College, and it was a webinar just of 3 hours on the topic of effective blended and online teaching. And we saw a very large participation and very enthusiastic participation from more than 200 participants, and majority were from Africa. That gave us the signal that the need of this kind of activity and this kind of event for the development of blended and online teaching is huge in this region. We received a lot of email requests and messages from the participants of this particular webinar, where they were requesting that we should have more in-depth and large event on blended and online teaching. So we felt the need due to the pandemic also, and there was a very clear-cut need which emerged from this, that there's a need for skill development and research and to be effective when we do blended and online teaching. Now, unfortunately, what is happening is that because of the COVID, many institutions have started online teaching and blended teaching without having sufficient resources and without sufficient skills, because it is just the need of the hour. But at the same time, this is the right time that as educators, we work on imparting the training, the skill, and to research about effective blended and online teaching. So after this webinar, we conceived this particular conference, and we have now a very good list of participants and panelists. So in this conference, we have keynote speeches from presidents of education institutions, from provosts, from entrepreneurs and founders and leaders. Also, we have top educators, researchers, and renowned academics who are going to act as session chairs in this conference. We have selected 12 papers after the peer reviews for presentations from more than 5 countries, including South Africa, Algeria, Egypt, and India. Because of the participants who are hailing from more than 10 countries, this is really an international conference. And the conference is very different from the other typical education conference, because this conference is more about the practice. And we all hope that one of the outcome of this conference will be a large scale adoption of best practices, increased reflections, and enhancement of practice of online and blended teaching and learning, in addition to the research on these subjects. It's a 2-day conference. So first day theme, we have design, pedagogy, and practices of online and blended teaching. Then we also have another theme for the first day, that is resources, assessments, and evaluations related to online and blended teaching. Second day, that is tomorrow, the first theme is students' perspectives on online and blended learning. and also using the existing or emerging technology for online and blended teaching. In each theme, there will be 3 presenters who will be presenting the peer-reviewed articles or cases or examples of best practices or research papers on blended or online teaching and learning. We have also received sponsorship from renowned companies. So there are 3 30-minute sessions in this conference from Coursera, Racklet, and McGraw-Hill. So this is the lineup for the session, the launch session, inauguration and keynotes. After my introductions, we will welcome Professor Ahmed Hamad, who is the president of the British University in Egypt, to deliver a welcome address, who is also the honorary co-chair of this organizing committee of the conference. Then we have a keynote speech from Mr. Dev Varyani, who is the founder and chairman of Vista Group and subsidiaries. We have a keynote speech from Professor Malcolm also, who is the provost and chief academic officer of Lancaster University, Ghana. And a keynote speech from Professor Leslie Toxford, who is the vice president for teaching and learning in the British University in Egypt. And at the end of this first session, the launch session, we will have the closing note by the organizing committee member, Professor Shadia Fahim from British University in Egypt. So I hope now Professor Hamad has joined already here. Yeah. Professor Hamad, are you there in the panel now already? I cannot see Professor Hamad in the panel here. So let me just introduce Professor Hamad. He has been very helpful for us from the BUE in organizing this particular conference. He is the president of the British University in Egypt, an emeritus professor at Ain Shams University Computer Systems Department. He had headed avionics department and also has been vice dean for postgraduate affairs, education and student affairs, then environmental affairs in Ain Shams University. He has also worked as dean of faculty of information and computer science and dean of ICS faculty. Professor Hamad has published more than 60 papers in international and local conferences, journals, and proceedings in different fields of information technology. He also has experience as vice president of the Egyptian Software Engineering Association. And he has been the dean of Faculty of Informatics and Computer Science, British University in Egypt, an IEEE member and ACM member. So I think Professor Hamad still is not here, so we will have his welcome speech after some time. Let us proceed towards the next speech. And this is from our founder and chairman of the Vista Group and subsidiaries, Mr. Dev Varyani. I can see he's already here in the panel. So Vista Group started its operations in 1989, and it has expanded its reach to 14 countries. It actually now is a multinational global company because of its global presence in India, Singapore, South Africa, and also in UAE. Mr. Varyani has master's degree in industrial engineering from Kansas State University in US, and he has spearheaded the group with leadership and professionalism and is employing over 1,500 employees in Africa through various diversified ventures in many businesses. So the topic of the keynote speech from Mr. Dev Varyani today is Eureka Africa and Vista Impact on Africa and Future Plans in the Education Sector. Let me give a little bit more brief about the group. So Vista Group has different sectors, it's in different industries, like for example, healthcare. The brand is Artemis Life Sciences. which is manufacturing and distributing pharmaceutical formulations and medical equipments in African countries. It also has commercial farms and agricultural processing facilities in Mozambique and Swaziland. Now, Bluecrest is a part of the education group of Vista, which is called Eureka Africa, where we have the learning colleges in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia under the brand of Bluecrest. Then there is a new campus, which is focusing on the STEM and entrepreneurship education. It is called Academic City University, based in Ghana. The third vertical is paper, stationery, building material, and agricultural products. The name is Vista Africa. So this for manufacturing and distribution in Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Mozambique, and Zambia. Vista Group is also in real estate development with the brand Resources for Africa. It is into commercial, education, warehousing, and manufacturing facilities in Mozambique, South of Sudan, Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Swaziland, and Zambia. So with this, I will request Mr. Dev Viryani to please come up, and we are eager to listen to his keynote speech now. Mr. Dev, please feel free to start. Mr. Dev, your mic is still off. You have to unmute your mic.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Dev, we can hear you.
You can hear me, okay. 1 second. I was trying to reboot. So hello, everybody. Sorry for the mishap. It's indeed an honor to share this Zoom dais with all of you, specifically Professor Ahmad in absentia, Professor Malcolm McIver of the Lancaster University, Ghana, Professor Leslie Crawford and Professor Shadia from British University in Egypt, to our Bluecrest head, Dr. Anand, all the other distinguished academics and students from all over, and to all my group vendors, colleagues, and friends. Let me start by talking a little about our origins. Our start in the education space took place in the late 1990s, specifically approaching Y2K and all the IT boom it generated in the services space, in the hardware space, etc. This specifically happened in 1999/2000. So at that time, I was in India, and I saw a huge growth in IT training franchise by the name of NIIT. So we approached them and decided we will do something in this space to start with in Ghana. So we had started, so that gave me a 10-year work experience in Africa, and we had built some other businesses. So I was looking to venture out into a service-based business, which also had a social component. So I looked at, that is how I started looking at the education and training space. So we started in 1999. We called our company I2000 in those days. And we frankly did very well. The students accepted us. This was a space which was untapped. There was a huge need for this, and I'm proud to tell you that we have a whole lot of alumni from NIIT which have gone on to work overseas, get fantastic jobs in Ghana, you know. So another aspect was, as the kids were leaving, they also wanted a degree certificate, which is what got us thinking. And then we started up a college across the road from where we were. And that's how our two colleges, the Academic City and the Bluecrest Ghana College, started. Very humble origins. We started in dilapidated buildings. As time went on, we repurposed these buildings for education, and this is where we are today. We went on thereafter to also build a brand in Liberia and Sierra Leone. I have always had a pan-Africa, view of business, and any business that we successfully, started, launched, and took off, we tried to, cut and paste across the continent. And usually we've had reasonable success with this kind of model. We are certainly very passionate about tech and entrepreneurship teaching and have made this our long-term commitment for the continent. We are not a not-for-profit like most education institutions, but the thin margins we work on almost make us one. We are very concerned that the edu market is getting seriously disrupted presently. It's almost a race to zero. So we are adapting to this expediency, and we currently have a very strong focus on digital. We have successfully Moodleized by fall this year. A lot of credit to Dr. Anand and his team for Bluecrest colleges, and at the backend team, which we run out of the UAE. So we were able to carry on all aspects of our teaching digitized in all our institutions. The only drawback has been internet reach in the second and third tier cities. But we are pretty certain that with large companies, with players like Google, SpaceX, soon to launch, internet explosion, this problem will be addressed. So we are looking forward to, after having explored serious tie-ups with MOOCs providers, and we hope to offer our programs digitally through all our institutions in Africa. I'm very confident that we'll have a fully digitized university with best practices in tech and teaching by the end of next year. We've gone on to expand our NIIT model with another additional company called Open Labs, through whom we've launched a very market-centric product called the Job Factory. And we're going to extend this both to our certificate and degree-seeking students. This program enables them to experience industry-relevant tech and business education, something that we've done a survey and figured out that new employees is a problem new employees encounter when they start their jobs, be it with SMEs, mid-sized companies, or with corporates. And these programs are run with case studies relevant to the region. Essentially, it's aimed at making them problem solvers in a company, job creators, instead of just being a workforce. Finally, it is our belief that the purpose of education is to make one blossom fully in all dimensions of life. So with this in mind, we are designing our institutions to deliver on this count as well. So there will be an element of, offering social skills to all our graduates in the future. There is indeed a lot to do. And the work that universities like Lancaster and BUE and others have already done, thankfully, leave footprints for us to follow. So we're indeed grateful for this. I know this is going to be a long day, so and there's a time limit. So I'm going to leave it at this. Our group is well invested in the continent, both in education and healthcare spaces. We believe these are areas for maximum social impact as the continent continues to flourish as the last frontier. Just so that everybody mistakenly thinks that this has been a very easy 30-year ride, as an entrepreneur, I must confess that we've had to make many mistakes along the way, and we've had to kiss death a few times. But God has been kind, and we're very much here, and we hope our institutions can carry around for the next 100 years or more. Wishing Dr. Anand, the Bluecrest, and other participating universities a productive conference. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Mr. Dev. Thank you, Mr. Dev, for your kind wishes. We are very glad that we have a leader and the person who is directing us towards the futuristic education with the vision you have about the education in this region. It's fantastic, it's relevant, and we have institutions like Lancaster and BUE to further guide us. So thank you for these kind wishes and for your welcoming address also, Mr. Dev. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let us proceed ahead now with the next event in this conference, with the presentation, the keynote speech from Professor Malcolm, who is the Provost and Chief Academic Officer of Lancaster University, Ghana. Professor Malcolm is a very easygoing person. I just met him online a month ago. I invited him to be the keynote speaker, and he promptly agreed to deliver a keynote. Professor Malcolm has been a general manager of large specialist hospital in the UK, senior lecturer at Homerton College of Health Studies in Cambridge, and a visiting professor to many international institutions, including the renowned University of Washington. Professor Malcolm was also invited to join the University of Cambridge as the lead researcher on a government-funded research project into school effectiveness and teacher sickness absence. The expertise of Professor Malcolm is going to be very valuable for us in this conference, because we're talking about effective teaching and learning. And I think Professor Malcolm has the right expertise to guide us further. In 2000, Professor Malcolm received the highest rating from the Economic and Social Research Council for his PhD proposal to research school effectiveness, which he undertook at the University of Cambridge. At University of Hertfordshire, he held a number of teaching and research positions before being appointed as the project lead for international development and director of studies in Malaysia. He also has been senior designer and project manager of the Malaysian Government Schools Transformation Program. I have seen this program when I was in Malaysia, and I have seen how Malaysian government schools have transformed to become better quality schools. He also published on school effectiveness, transnational education, and learning disabilities. So the topic today for Professor Malcolm in the keynote is the virtual exchange programs, international exchange in a time of lockdown. So welcome, Professor Malcolm. Please feel free to start.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anand, and thank you for that introduction. Reading out just a part of my CV makes me realize just how old I am these days. Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody who is attending today. It is a pleasure to be here with you this morning, albeit virtually, but that is the nature of the beast at this moment in time, and it is fitting as it is the nature of the conference. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Anand and the organising committee for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. This is a very timely conference because whilst COVID-19 is still very much with us, here in Ghana and across Africa and the world, universities are preparing to open up campuses and to readmit students. As we approach 2021, the outlook is far more optimistic than it was just a few months ago. And academics and institutions are making preparations to return to the classroom delivery of their programs. But this conference is timely because it would be a mistake to think that we are going back to the way things were. We are not going back to 2019. We cannot go back to 2019. COVID-19 has changed everything, and its impact will be felt for many years to come. Since the start of the pandemic and over the last few months, individuals, institutions, regulatory authorities, and national governments have had to acknowledge the need for the digitalization of education and the introduction of online learning. Where previously there was resistance, suddenly there was demand. Students and parents who were previously suspicious of online learning started to demand it. And many students are now expressing a preference for it. I would argue that it would therefore be a big mistake to abandon the lessons that have been learned and the experience that has been gained this year. Blended and online learning has now started. It has an impetus, and it's essential that we maintain that impetus. Schools and colleges have migrated whole programs and support systems to the internet, and they have done so with impressive speed. But as Dr. Anand has already said, quite often it was done with limited knowledge and limited technology and support. One area in particular that did struggle in terms of the transfer to online delivery was the student experience in relation to in terms of student exchange and study abroad programs. And for a large part, these have been ignored for the last 12 months. The closure of international borders and the restrictions on travel have hit this student experience very badly. And in the understandable rush to replace classroom learning with online learning, student exchange programs have pretty much been overlooked. It is, after all, impossible to have an international exchange if students cannot travel. At least that is the perceived wisdom. I would argue, however, that student exchange programs are perfectly suited to online delivery and blended learning. And if anything, that should be the primary mode of delivery for student exchange. International exchange programs have been a feature of tertiary education for more than a century. The First World War, quickly followed by the Second World War, were the catalysts that brought about the growth in student exchange and study abroad programs. Originally, the impetus was to promote understanding between nations and to prevent future worldwide conflicts. Today, almost every university has a study abroad or a student exchange program, and the purpose and objectives of those programs has also changed and grown over the years. Originally intended to promote harmony and to prevent world war, now the objectives are far more diverse. Study abroad enhances and develops student problem-solving skills. It develops language skills and intercultural sensitivity. They're intended to encourage resilience, flexibility, and creativity. And those are the objectives. And the benefits of participating in an exchange or study abroad program are equally well documented. Students who have successfully completed even the shortest of exchanges in a foreign country exhibit increased transversal skills, such as curiosity and confidence. They demonstrate greater understanding of global issues. They have enhanced analytical and problem-solving skills, and are aware of and much more likely to adopt alternative, multifaceted approaches to learning. And there is one other highly significant benefit to having an academic experience overseas. A recent piece of research identified that 64% of employers think that international experience is an important quality when recruiting new graduates. And this is borne out by graduate employability figures. The Erasmus Impact Study, a study undertaken by the European Commission, and to date the largest study of its kind with a sample size of over 80,000 participants, looked at the internationalization of higher education and the relationships between international student mobility, skills development, and graduate employment. What they found reflected what employers had claimed, that students who had successfully completed an international exchange program increased their employability by 42% when compared to those students who hadn't taken part in any kind of international exchange. So clearly, international exchange has a host of benefits for our students. Whilst there's no definitive figure for last year, it is estimated that during 2019, approximately 20 million tertiary level students participated in an international academic experience. What is now known is that in 2020, that figure is certainly considerably lower. Very, very few students have had an international experience this year. So pre-COVID, 20 million students a year were getting on planes, trains, and automobiles to set off on an international exchange. A valuable opportunity, but also a massive increase in greenhouse gases in the process. Well, 20 million sounds like a very impressive number, and it is indeed a huge number. But in those universities that have exchange programs, the research shows that fewer than 20% of students were involved in any form of global mobility. 80% of their students were not involved. And when one factors in those institutions that don't have any exchange programs, the number then drops dramatically. Globally, fewer than 10% of students have an international experience. So that poses the question, what sort of global learning opportunities and intercultural experiences were available for the remaining 90% of students who didn't experience a student exchange? And sadly, the answer would appear to be none, nothing. No international experience and none of the associated benefits. International exchange and the benefits that go with it have traditionally only been available to a very select few, and invariably to the most privileged of students. Virtual international exchanges, however, open up those opportunities and benefits to all students. So what is a virtual international exchange? Well, the evidence-validated online learning through virtual exchange project, and that is actually the title of the project, or as it is also known as Evolve, is an EU-funded project dedicated to developing virtual exchange programs. And they define virtual exchange as practice supported by research that consists of sustained technology-enabled people-to-people education programs or activities in which constructive communication and interaction takes place between individuals or groups who are geographically separated and from different cultural backgrounds, with the support of educators or facilitators. And that's quite a lengthy definition, but to put it simply, their virtual exchange programs allow students from all walks of life to engage in a global learning activity with peers from other universities and countries. It offers students the opportunity to engage with students from very different backgrounds and to do so in a neutral environment. In a traditional exchange, students are invariably far away from everything that they are familiar with. They are away from their family, they are away from everything they know and understand. And being a visitor in someone else's country a visitor in someone else's university, can sometimes be intimidating. In a virtual exchange, nobody is away from home. Nobody has home advantage because everybody has home advantage. And because students engage and interact online, it is far more flexible and cheaper than traditional mobility options. It also allows students to choose elective classes from other universities, and it exposes them to a wider pool of academic staff, ideas, and concepts. It also allows students to become part of a wider global student community, one that allows them to make connections and to develop an international network. With that virtual exchange, students who previously could not afford to get on a plane and fly halfway around the world can now access the benefits and opportunities previously denied to them. They can engage with and participate in classes taught thousands of miles away that employ different teaching and learning strategies. This will give them insights into new ways of studying, into new ways of learning. Working in mixed groups on locally relevant issues affords students cultural insights and enables them to develop greater understanding of global issues without ever having to leave home. And unlike traditional exchanges, where you can physically only be in one country at a time, with virtual exchange, students from Ghana can be working with students from Egypt and Malaysia simultaneously, learning from each other on a wide range of shared activities. And before people say, this does not afford the same cultural experience, this does not afford the same level of interaction, let's not forget that we are talking about a generation that has grown up with the internet, a generation that already lives and shares their life online, a generation that makes and has friends online that they may have never physically met. For them, the online world is already a second home. I am conscious of time, and I know most people have tuned in to listen to the papers rather than to me. But if I may, for just one moment, give you a personal anecdote. Yesterday, I was at a birthday party. It was my daughter's 21st birthday yesterday. She lives in the UK, I live in Ghana, and my wife's family are Malaysian. Despite the lockdown, despite the distance, yesterday we had a birthday party that was attended by people from Ghana, the UK, Switzerland, Malaysia, and Singapore. And I have to say it was one of the best birthday parties I've ever been to. So if the technology exists for my family to stage a multicultural exchange, then it exists for our students and for our universities to do the same. If we return to past practice, if we continue to exclude 90% of students from an essential learning experience, then we have failed our students. Virtual exchange is an opportunity for every student to have an international experience. I wish you all the very best with your conference. I look forward to hearing your papers, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Malcolm. And let me give a little bit summary of what Professor Malcolm has actually mentioned in the keynote. It's very relevant and it's fitting to the new normal now, because what Professor Malcolm started with, that we cannot go back to 2019. It's a very, very relevant point. And the origin of student exchange program, the objective was different and now it has changed. Then Professor Malcolm talked about importance of international experience, and the most impactful outcome is the increase in the employability of the students because of the international exchange experience, which actually suggests that the international experience provides a lot of value and skills to the students. At the same time, we saw the gap, which is like 80% of students are not involved in international exchange, and fewer than 10% actually have the international experience with the use of international exchange programs. So this gap, 90%, is a huge gap. And because of the lack of means, many students lack the opportunity to join international exchange program. And that is why the idea that the virtual international exchange is a good solution. And especially, it's a very good alternative at this point of time, and also in the future for the students who have limited means. And I'm very glad that Professor Malcolm talked about her daughter. Congratulations, Professor Malcolm, for the birthday of your daughter and the way you have enjoyed the birthday. You are lucky actually, because you're part of this party and had the good experience of the party. So that is nice. Thank you, Professor Malcolm, for this keynote. Let us move ahead in this session now. So next keynote presenter is Professor Leslie Croxford. He is the Vice President for Teaching and Learning at the British University in Egypt. Before academics, as General Manager of a large specialist hospital in the UK, Professor Leslie also has been a senior lecturer at Homerton College of Health Studies in Cambridge. I think the introduction has some kind of mistake here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm very sorry for that. I will introduce Professor Leslie after this session from Professor Leslie. Sorry for this mistake. I think there are some mistakes in the slides.
Never mind.
Sorry, Professor Leslie, I'll come back after your speech so that I can give a proper introduction.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to see Professor Malcolm. It's very good to see you. We know each other from our past together, and I think you've got parts of his CV up there anyway.
It is a pleasure to meet you, Leslie. For 1 second then, when Dr. Anand was reading it out, I thought I had a twin.
No, but you have a friend.
Sorry for that. It also shows how close both of you are.
Yes.
I was going to talk about the pedagogy of blended and in fact hybrid learning. So with your permission, maybe I'll do that. And it's a privilege and a pleasure to contribute to this conference on a subject that's recently come into sharp focus in education, which is obviously blended and hybrid learning and teaching. In one respect, it's come upon us accidentally. The use of technology for learning has been thrust on us by the COVID-19 pandemic, which requires us to teach virtually. So even in the cases of blended and hybrid teaching and learning, neither of which is entirely virtual, we've been prompted to consider carefully the use of virtual components of delivery and learning. And since this requires a salutary re-evaluation and development of teaching practice, it's actually the silver lining in what has otherwise been a very painful public health emergency. Of course, since blended and hybrid teaching and learning are not themselves primarily indispensable emergency measures, I want to explore the principal permanent pedagogic benefits that they might bring. And one way of doing so is to identify at the outset the benefits they do not bring. And this is necessary because innovations of any kind have a tendency to produce true believers, focusing on them narrowly, sometimes to the exclusion of all else. But since education is complex, as are the learners and teachers implicated in it, it's most unlikely that a single new approach, no matter how enticing, will provide everything we seek. Moreover, the motivation for which blended or hybrid learning is adopted needs to be clear-eyed. If it's chosen because it allows an increased number of students to enroll in an institution for financial reasons or to expand student access, it should be necessary to recognize the elements that cannot be addressed through it. While if such learning and teaching is resorted to in a COVID world so as to reduce the number of students physically present at the same time, thus increasing social distancing, the educational elements that will be lost must also be reckoned with and somehow compensated for, not merely ignored. Blended and hybrid teaching and learning is then of some but limited assistance in helping students make the transition from school to university. There's a need for face-to-face support that's immediate when students stumble, lose heart, or simply fail to acquire the personal habits as well as study skills their new environment requires. Otherwise, failure to orientate new students appropriately will lead to early difficulties in adaptation and achievement. Again, a major part of the student experience, specifically including their learning experience, is social. It involves students' communication with their peers and requires a measure of informality springing from easy face-to-face contact. Furthermore, while for some time the role of teacher has been reduced to that of guide, at least according to received wisdom, teachers still act as important academic role models. They need to do so with reference to demeanor and attitude, and that means in person. Finally, the necessarily highly planned and goal-focused nature of blended and virtual learning and teaching does not necessarily lead to one essential positive effect of education. This is an effect implied by the Latin verb educare, to lead out. While young people are led by education out from the relatively private realm of childhood to exposure in maturity to the duties, risks, and opportunities of action in the public sphere, which is education's original meaning, education can also, especially in modern times, draw things out of oneself that one did not know were in one, namely unexpected interests, aptitudes, and pursuits. These may become central in one's life. That kind of individually liberating and creative education is the unplanned and necessarily unexpected outcome of open-ended intellectual endeavor, but not necessarily of a prefabricated course. So these are some of the things that blended and hybrid learning and teaching cannot do. What then can it do? In fact, developments before COVID-19 were already enabling it. Most obviously, technology has been on the advance for decades. No students and few teachers can remember a time without computers, email, and e-learning. We've also experienced the impact of social media. It makes it habitual for many people to interact virtually in all aspects of their lives. Doing so in education may feel increasingly natural. Moreover, a number of degree programs have, for some time, added online elements incrementally, even doing so, in some cases, in fully fledged distance learning degrees. These developments have, however, even with the impetus of COVID-19, primarily resulted merely in blended teaching and learning. Yet the use of technology in blended teaching and learning is primarily supplementary. Face-to-face activity forms the bulk of the learning engagement, merely adding on the virtual or other activities to enhance learning. They are supplementary, and this is of limited interest pedagogically. It does not represent a significant educational innovation. Separate from blended learning and teaching, and not to be lumped together with it, is hybrid learning and teaching. Hybrid, unlike blended teaching, uses technology not simply to make additions, but in an integrative way. It focuses on both face-to-face and online learning without valuing the one more than the other, for both elements are combined, even synergized, to meet the learning needs of the students. Hence, hybrid learning does not so much advance at pedagogy, it is itself a pedagogy or teaching strategy. More than a mere set of procedures, it's been well described as a scaffolding for a wide variety of teaching strategies. Each is consciously adopted as appropriate to the subject matter and needs of the specific group of learners. In a university, the primary needs of the student will be viewed academically, although in other ways too. It may well seek to develop the overarching educational objectives for the relevant year of study. A famous example is, of course, Bloom's taxonomy, with its 6 incremental objectives ranging year by year from knowledge all the way to synthesis and evaluation, each with its accompanying intellectual skills. Then, to put the same thing differently, one may consider a program's intended learning outcomes. A hybrid learning course does not, however, merely presume that engagement with the subject and related assessments will of themselves draw out such development from the students. For the laying out of a subject, no matter how logical and orderly, moving from first to subsequent principles, cannot be relied on of itself to align with the nature and pace of a student's current capacity to learn. It is necessary to align with the contours of the student's attention span and capacity to assimilate at his or her stage of intellectual development. Therefore, a series of interactions between face-to-face teaching and virtual learning must be carefully planned to keep company with them. Doubtless, this conference will explore what form such interactions might take. Here I restrict myself to the following caveat. Course design, carefully, indeed seamlessly, aligning face-to-face interactions with a range of virtual teaching options determines the use of technology, not vice versa. For the main point of hybrid teaching, as the pedagogy I've suggested it to be, is the opening up of a new set of academic development opportunities for students. It is not the showcasing of the transformative power of technology. And what are the special benefits made possible thereby? First, hybrid teaching is student-centered par excellence. Second, it makes a reality of that educational holy grail, namely the development of the independent learner. Hitherto, he or she was a person who spent 2/3 of study time doing extra assigned study, homework if you like. Now, independent effort is a scarlet thread designed to go through all the hybrid activities, binding them together. Third, hybrid teaching allows for the widest variety of learning styles. Some are mere personal preferences, even idiosyncrasies, such as preferring to study at night. Some reflect the desire to react more slowly to learning materials by watching videos or lectures several times. Others allow for extensive engagement with either or both peers and professors in informal chat rooms or other virtual venues. This is in addition to those who have disabilities or work and family commitments that do not enable them to engage according to a conventional schedule. Fourth, it's possible for teachers to see who is online. Those who are slipping behind or disengaging can then be supported and drawn back into the class community. Which brings us finally to the other great feature of hybrid teaching and learning, the tonic effect it can have on teachers. It requires all teachers to reassess in a radical way what they are seeking to accomplish with their hybrid course, who its stakeholders are, whether students, the university, some possibly international validating entity, or government agency. It also asks teachers how they will accomplish it. Such invigoration can only be good, as I know the forthcoming discussions at this conference will show. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Professor Leslie. Let me mention some of the points I have noted down from this very insightful speech from Professor Leslie, where the emphasis initially was what the blended learning cannot do, and then how hybrid learning and hybrid teaching is different from blended teaching and learning. This is a very important point. The insight which I learned personally is that how the course design and learning outcomes should determine the use of technology, not the use of technology that determines the course design. It's a very insightful point. Then how to synergize the face-to-face and online teaching and learning, and how it can provide scaffolding for teachers and for learners. Then the outcome of, or you can say the affordance, which is coming from the hybrid learning, is customization. And it addresses the decreasing attention span of the students, the differences in the capacity of learning, and a careful plan and design actually can have very high impact on learning for the students. And the set of benefits which are there. See, this is an era where everybody is talking about student-centered teaching and learning, but how to do it is still an issue. And many educators, they're still wondering how can we be student-centered, because we ourselves have learned in a different manner in our colleges and universities, and we have very limited exposure and experience with student-centered teaching ourselves. So I think hybrid teaching method and hybrid learning approach is a very good solution for this particular problem, to say how it can be student-centered, because it leads to the development of independent learners, it promotes independent efforts of learning, and a very important point is because it is very flexible. The learning styles can be different from the student for different students, and they can still learn. It increases the engagement and transparency also. So it's very insightful, very impactful. With the knowledge and wisdom of Professor Leslie, I hope we'll continue getting your guidance. We are planning to continue doing research, to continue doing these kind of activities, which will help educators all around the world to grow, to develop our skills further, to share the knowledge with each other, and to grow ourselves as a better educator. This is very important for any practitioner, any professional, that we grow ourselves as a better practitioner. And we always seek guidance from persons, wise persons like Professor Leslie. Thank you, Professor Leslie, for this speech.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it a lot. And it did something which is to force me to think about it myself. So I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And very sorry, I could not gave you introduction earlier, but now I'm ready with that.
Oh, my goodness.
So Professor Leslie actually is the Vice President for Teaching and Learning at the British University in Egypt. He has BA, MA, and PhD degrees in history from Cambridge University. He taught at Cambridge, Tsukuba University in Japan, and in the USA at Rutgers, Emory, and Harvard, where he was a head preceptor in the expository writing. At the American University in Cairo, he was tenured in the Department of English and Comparative Literature. He has been the director of the writing program, a founding member of Senate, and a creator of the university's liberal arts core curriculum. Professor Leslie has been the full professor with tenure at Suffolk University in Boston. He founded its campus in Madrid, Spain, and was director for 10 years before returning to Cairo to help found the British University in Egypt as preparatory year program director, academic director, then vice president for teaching and learning. So I see in the profile of Professor Leslie, he has been a founder in various education institutions, which is also resulting into emergence of a variety of knowledge and entrepreneurship in his personality, not only just as an educator. So thank you, Professor Leslie.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. Thank you.
Let's move ahead to the next presentation we have. It's basically a closing note from Professor Shadia Fahim, who has been a good friend now with us because Professor Shadia has been very active with us in this organization of the conference. I can see almost every other day we interact, we share our ideas, and we work actively to make this conference possible. So Professor Shadia has been the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities in the British University in Egypt, Professor of English Language and Literature. She has obtained BA and MA from Ain Shams University and PhD from Exeter University in UK. And her research interest is the study of English literature from postmodern and cross-cultural perspectives, with focus on modern literary theory, fiction, and power discourse. She has published in the area of the development of education, and she has experience at both national and international universities. In 1994, her book, Doris Lessing, Sufi, Equilibrium, and the Form of the Novel, was published by the renowned publisher Macmillan Press Limited in England and St. Martin in the United States. Professor Shadia founded and was head of the Department of English Language and Literature at the Higher Institute of International Languages from 2000 to 2005. She has earned her professorship degree in 2005 and was consultant for the English program in New York Institute for Technology. So Professor Shadia is going to talk about the topic rethinking higher education, I think, which is very timely topic and a very carefully selected topic because we all are rethinking at this stage as educators and leaders of the education. So thank you, Professor Shadia. We are eager to hear you. Please feel free to start.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anand. Well, it's an honor to be here on this panel for such an important topic that is relevant to all educators around the world. It has been an interesting and enriching experience working with Blue Crest University, with you, Dr. Anand, and the organizing committee to co-host this conference. Well, just a brief note on the British University in Egypt was established in 2005. I'm just referring to the what Professor Hamad, who couldn't join, would have mentioned. The university operates 11 faculties of different disciplines across STEM, social sciences, and arts and humanities. Well, we have around 10,000 undergraduate students, and it is both a teaching and research-led university. Well, the British University is keen, like Blue Crest University, to engage with the wider audiences and contribute to the best practices of teaching and learning. Now I'll start in my brief note. I will focus on this clear need of rethinking higher education. For over a decade now, there has been a call for change in higher education. And overnight, we were compelled to change the way we approach teaching, pedagogy, and assessment. COVID-19 has evidently been the catalyst for this transformation, but technology has played a key role. We remember that scientific inventions and technology have always set turning points. The printing press in the 15th century was a turning point that revolutionized reading and education. Today, satellites, computers, the internet, and cell phones have also impacted learning in ways that have made it necessary for us to rethink education and reset learning priorities. The prevalence of digital technologies has provided students with unfettered electronic access to information. They are no longer the students our education system was designed to teach. Knowledge has become available to them abundantly and at their fingertips. This transformation has raised the need for rethinking effective pedagogy that would provide them not only with knowledge, but as important with the skills of becoming critical consumers of information. 21st century education activates higher order thinking skills to enable millennials to analyze, evaluate, create, and filter information, the key skills for today's job market. Students and academic staff in higher education can most truly relate to this. There is no going back to our old ways of teaching. Under such pressure, higher education institutions were pushed to explore the rich potentials of blended and online teaching. The merits of blended and online teaching and learning are numerous. We aspire that this conference will bring together both local and international experiences of best practices and to serve as a platform for standard quality recommendations for educators in higher education. Well, thank you. This is a very brief note. I had only a few minutes and looking forward to share best practices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sadia. We are already feeling this impact. Sorry, I have been actually feeling some cold from last night. So we are feeling this impact of education even in Bluecrest College. When we were under lockdown, about 30% students told us that we are not ready to study online in Ghana. In Ghana, actually also, the online education is not so popular. And students want to come to the campus, to feel the campus, to experience the gathering and interaction with each other, and to be physically with each other, basically. So the students are not yet here 100% ready to be online. But at the same time, the students who continued learning online with us using our platform of Moodle, they ultimately liked it. And we were amazed to see the positive feedback from them. And we completed the last semester online using our LMS, including the exams, very smoothly. The president of the country has still not allowed us to open the campus physically. But now we are glad with the confidence of our students on us. They came back this semester to study online on their own. And many students who decided not to study online, they joined back this semester. So slowly now online learning is being realized as a very good alternative, and students are now seeing the advantage of it. And with the events like the webinar we had done last time and this particular conference and the activities which is going on globally about online and blended teaching and learning, slowly I'm very sure that this is going to pick up very fast. And as Professor Leslie mentioned, we need to make it effective so that technology is not the driver of teaching, but the design of the course and the need of the course should actually drive the use of technology. So this is a very important point which we all need to learn. Thank you, Professor Sadia, for your closing the speech today here about rethinking higher education. Now we have the next part of the conference with the theme 1 presentations. So in the theme 1, we have the theme called Design, Pedagogy and Practices in Online and Blended Teaching. And we have with us our session chair for this particular session as Ms. Nodumo Dlamini. She's the Director of ICT Services, Corporate Communications and Knowledge Management at the Association of African Universities, with more than 26 years of experience in secondary school education, banking, railways, higher education, and tertiary agricultural education. She has worked in various countries, Swaziland, Zimbabwe, Uganda, and Ghana, and has led the digitalization projects at Africa University, Zimbabwe from 1999 to 2008. She is the part of the team that designed and supported the implementation of the Pan-African Virtual E-University. And I have seen how active Ms. Nodumo is in the WhatsApp. She is in touch with me in the WhatsApp group, and she has been now driving the use of the learning management system in the African universities. She has experience in strategic leadership, management, and administration. She runs continental capacity building programs for e-learning development, innovations in teaching, research communication, developing digital systems, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Ms. Nodumo was a former ICT director at Africa University in Zimbabwe and former ICT program manager at RUForum, Uganda. So I welcome Ms. Nodumo to take over this whole session. In this session, we have 3 presentations which are titled as Blended Teaching Pedagogies and Facilitating Online Interaction from Dr. Nagwa Soliman, who is from the British University in Egypt. Then presentation number 2 is about micro-learning, strengthening blended learning courses from Ms. Nazma Hesham from British University in Egypt. And a very interesting topic, Shakespeare in blended learning mode, examining its effectiveness at the British University in Egypt during COVID-19 pandemic, from Dr. Marvat and Ms. Salma Asadi. So Ms. Nodumo is going to chair the session, is going to open, introduce all the speakers, and set the rules. We'll lead this particular session and close the session. And I expect Ms. Nodumo to please follow the timelines so that we can follow the schedule here. Do we a little bit early now, which is a good sign for us. So Professor Nodumo, Ms. Nodumo, please start.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Dr. Anand. It's a pleasure for me to chair this session, and I've particularly enjoyed the keynote addresses, and they obviously came from very experienced people who understand the terrain. And so in terms of what we are going to do, we have 3 presenters. Each presenter has 20 minutes to present, and we will then have a question and answer 5 to 10 minutes after each presentation. So I will be calling out to the presenters in case they are running out of time, so that we stick to the 20 minutes per each presenter. This session will be focusing on online and blended teaching, and we will be looking at issues related to design, pedagogy, and practices, particularly what experiences are coming out on the ground from academics that have engaged in online and blended teaching, but with a specific focus on the design. So I welcome the attendees to use the question and answer panel. If you look down on your Zoom, you'll see a Q&A panel. So please do post your questions there so that the speakers, if possible, can begin to engage with you by responding to your questions. Concerning the order of presentation, we would initially hear from Professor Nagwa Soliman, who is a senior lecturer of English language and literature, advanced writing module leader within the Faculty of Arts and Humanities at the British University in Egypt. The presentation will focus on blended teaching pedagogies and facilitating online interactions. So Professor Nagwa A. Soliman, I hope you are ready. If you could please prepare to make your presentation, and you have 20 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. It's an honor and pleasure to contribute to this conference. And I'd like to share my presentation with you. My presentation title is Blended Teaching Pedagogies and Facilitating Online Interaction. I just want to make sure that it's that you can.
Yeah, it may be put it in presentation mode.
Yes, I'll do so right away. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me start. I'll start first with my outline. I'll first give a brief definition of blended learning. Then I'm going to move on to discuss developing an informed and effective online learning environment. Thirdly, I'll talk about using different teaching pedagogies. And then lastly, I'm going to discuss facilitating online interaction, and I'll conclude my presentation. Okay. Definition of blended learning, blend means to a mixture. So it includes face-to-face learning together with online learning. And as you see, blended learning is in between, okay? Moving on to my second point, which is developing an informed and effective learning environment. I used the Chickering and Gamesons in 1987, 7 principles for good practice in undergraduate education. According to that, so Chickering and Gamesons, good practice encourages contact between students and faculty. And of course, with the availability of technology like email, is available to students 24/7, okay? Secondly, good practice develops reciprocity and cooperation among students. It allows them to, with collaboration and in the setting of a blended learning class, this is possible, collaboration, cooperation, and reciprocity between the students. Thirdly, good practice encourages and uses active learning techniques. As you all know, students are no longer expected to sit in a passive status where they only listen to the lecturer and take notes, and that's it. They participate, they work in groups. And fourthly, a good practice gives students prompt feedback. We as lecturers, we need to give feedback in a prompt manner in order for students to be able to learn and develop. Fifthly, good practice emphasizes time on task. Whenever students are assigned a task, they need to know the exact time that they have to complete and submit the task. Good practice, sixth, communicates high expectations. We should motivate and encourage students to do their best we expect that we keep motivating them to get the highest grades, to be able to learn, to achieve, not just pass a module, okay? And lastly, good practice respects diverse talents and ways of learning. We all know that students have different learning styles. They have different taste in learning and their abilities, so we should consider this. Moving on to another, Robert Gaines in 1985, 9 Events of Instruction. He believes that a good practice, you need first to gain the attention of the students. So you shouldn't lose them. So at the beginning, you need to gain attention, which is the reception. Secondly, inform students of the objectives, which is actually very important. They need to know from the beginning of the lecture what are the intended learning objectives of that particular lecture. And then we can use recall. By recall here, I mean to check their understanding, okay? Not the actual restatement of whatever they're going to learn, because this is not needed right now. Then the way that we present the material, we have to select the important material and not just everything, because as we all know, there is material overload and a lot of material on the World Wide Web. And so we need to be selective and to pick the reliable, credible material and relevant, of course. Fifthly, we provide learning guidance. Of course, we are now facilitators, we are mentors, all right? We're not purveyors of knowledge, as was the case before in the traditional setting. Elicit performance. We need to elicit from the students, provide feedback, assess performance, and enhance retention and transfer. I move on to my third point, which is the use of different teaching pedagogies. There are different pedagogies that I'm going to go through: the adult learner, constructivist, objectivist, problem-based learning, engagement theory, collaborative learning, and role-taking. Now, with the adult learner, we need to consider the fact, if we're talking about teaching adults, that they themselves, they tend to be self-directed, internally motivated, and ready to learn. Moving on to the constructivist paradigm argues that knowledge is contextual with multiple meanings and perspectives for any and every experience, concept, or event. Hence, meaning is derived from the particular experience, and this is according to Hoffman in 2011. Moving on to the social constructivist ideas, these ideas, they promote critical thinking through what? Through engaging in knowledge building with peers in a social context collaboratively. What about the constructivist pedagogy? It could be used with upper level courses, such as the theory-based literature course online, where students need to evaluate and relate context, whether it's historical, social, and political, to the readings and their own lives. Problem-based learning starts with problems for students to solve, discuss, and dissect. With problem-based learning, students learn concepts, theories, strategies, terms, and paradigms to assist them in finding solutions. As the pedagogy is titled problem-based, and the problems that we select should be similar to the ones students will face in their particular professions, because as you know, that they need to feel that what they're doing will benefit them, the students, after they graduate. This approach works well in courses that require students to call on prior content knowledge, and is best delivered in scenarios often found in discussion-based online learning. The problem-based learning approach could be used in courses that focus on application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. I just want to make sure I didn't miss, let me carry on. Yes, moving on to the objectivist pedagogy. According to objectivists, the learner strives for complete and correct understanding of the multiple structures in the world. Objectivist pedagogy is usually, it's the other extreme with the constructivist. So it works best in a lower level survey course, where students need to attain, retain, recall facts, events, dates, people, and places. So it refers to the lower levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, okay? Objective, we could use with the objectivist paradigm, online exams, quizzes focusing on chronology, multiple choice, true or false, fill in questions, which can be constructed to affirm students' progress and grasp of complete and correct information, structures, and timelines. This pedagogy works well in core general education courses. This is where it could be used, including history, sociology, political science, psychology, and philosophy. What about the engagement theory pedagogy? Well, it calls for learners to be actively engaged in meaningful tasks in order for effective learning to occur. Engagement theory asserts that all learning should have three major characteristics: collaboration, students should collaborate together, a problem-based approach, and authenticity. So notice here that more than one pedagogy is used inside the engagement theory. Why? Because it recognizes that multiple approaches to teaching are conducive to optimal effective learning. Collaborative learning. Okay, what about collaborative learning? This refers to teaching a specific educational objective. How? Through a coordinated and shared activity by means of social interactions amongst the group members. This is according to Dillenburg, 1999, Zurita and Nussbaum in 2004. This type of learning contributes to deeper level learning, to shared understanding, critical thinking, and long-term retention of the learned material, according to Garrison et al., 2001, and Johnson & Johnson, Christian et al. Collaborative learning also involves the active role of the learners, which mainly implies that participants learn from each other by actively co-constructing knowledge. Okay, so it would include what? Some steps: information sharing, cooperation, and collaboration. What are the positive results of collaboration and together with role-taking? Well, students benefit from knowledge building, cognitive responsibility, social cognition, group cohesion, positive interdependence, and peer contribution awareness. So let me give you an example of role-taking. One role could be the social tutor, another synthesizer. A third role could be concept mapper. A fourth role could be skeptic. Let me now explain what I mean. With social tutor, his or her role would be promoting participation of all the members of the group, mainly aligned with the democratizing of knowledge. So here it's like he or she is the moderator, okay? Then the synthesizer, synthesizing of content, which is consistent with knowledge building and improving of ideas. What about the concept mapper? He or she presents the concept map graphically representing knowledge created by his or her group to other groups during the face-to-face discussion, because of course we're talking about blended learning. The skeptic emphasizing promising ideas and avoiding commonplace ideas in the group discussion. Why? In order to generate prolific doubts, okay? To make the group rethink of what ideas are they creating in this discussion theme. With collaboration outcomes, this is according to Garrison, 2001. So he mentioned that an educational community of inquiry is a group of individuals who collaboratively engage in purposeful, critical discourse and reflection. Why? To construct personal meaning and confirm mutual understanding. Okay, I want now to talk about the last point, which is facilitating online interaction. I'm going to divide it into categories. Interaction between student to content, student to interface, since we're talking about blended learning with a platform, a virtual platform, student to teacher, teacher to student, students to student, and student to himself or herself. Okay, student to content. With content, as Professor Leslie mentioned, there has to be a variety. By variety, I mean hypermedia, text-based content, a PowerPoint presentation, so as to avoid monotony, because students of this age, this generation, they become bored easily, okay? Also, there should be clarity of course design. From the very beginning, the students, it should be easy for them to go through and browse through the course, and everything should be clear from the beginning of the semester. There should also be self-test and short quizzes and forums. Okay, a very important point with student to interface is that students should acquire digital literacy. And this is according to Dillenberg, 1999, and Blau. To them, student digital literacy involves photo-visual thinking, which means the ability of the students to understand and intuitively use visual information. Real-time thinking, the ability to quickly and effectively process a variety of simultaneous stimuli that the learners are exposed to. What about information thinking? They should be able to correctly evaluate and effectively combine information from multiple digital sources. You know, the World Wide Web includes an array of information. So they need to be able not to take any information and to use it and think it's reliable. They have to have the skill and ability to evaluate information and to pick the relevant and credible ones to use as support for their writing or their presentation that they are developing. They should also have the skill of branching thinking, which is to successfully navigate in nonlinear hypermedia environments. And of course, comes as you notice that this is going according to the Bloom's taxonomy, right? And then the reproduction thinking, which means using technological tools to design content or remix existing digital content to create original artifacts. The creation itself of artifacts and using the digital tools is in itself a production, and it's an engaging activity for students of this century. And of course, we need not to forget the social emotional thinking, which is understanding the rules. There is what is called netiquette. There are rules that prevail in cyberspace. Students should be aware of these rules, and they should apply this understanding to digital communication and teamwork. Okay, what about the student?
Professor
Yes?
Nagwe, just to inform you, we now have about 5 minutes left.
Thank you so much, and I'll end my presentation by then. Okay, student to teacher, I'm focusing on interaction between the student and the teacher. We need, as teachers, to provide clear expectations to the learners, and this was mentioned, I guess, before. We should set time for students to ask and answer questions. With regards to expectations, they need to know when they send us an email, how long will it take us to respond, so that they don't become worried or concerned. Okay, maintaining frequency of contact, of course, is very important, and regular presence in online discussion. If we open up a forum, we just don't leave the students to conduct the discussion, and we don't participate with them. We need to be present, to summarize their talk, to engage with them, so which motivates them to participate. Okay, the teacher's role, we should take the role of what, as I mentioned before, facilitator, organizer, mentor, and initiator. I'll explain here initiation. So I'm not just going to be the facilitator of knowledge, but I'm no longer a purveyor of knowledge. I'll facilitate students searching and building knowledge. But I have to initiate first. Initiation here is the teachers help an effort to establish students' essential knowledge and develop basic skills. At the beginning of each course, this has to be my role. To lead students into the professional field of study. They can't do that on their own. I have to help them first at the beginning. So I initiate, okay? With teachers, according to Liao et al., with teachers' help and initiation, students have more opportunities to develop complex cognitive or metacognitive skills. And metacognitive here means thinking about thinking, okay? Student to student, all students should be open-minded, should respect the perspectives and ideas of others. They have to feel the equity, meaning they all participate in the team. They all have a role. I vary the role of the student, the students. There has to be trust. They should have listening skills and connection with text here, meaning their opinions should be supported by research and articles that they get online. Okay, student continued. We have triggering events as an example: exploration, integration, okay, application, key resources, and collaboration. All right. Student to himself. This is a self-regulated learning strategy that students should we should exercise this with students. It's in which they in terms of self-generated thoughts, feelings, and actions, which are systemically oriented towards what attainment of students' own goals. So an example of this would be students are given a journal entry for them to write their goals. What are their goals from this module? And at the end of the semester, they write another entry. What have they learned actually from this module? And now I come to the conclusion. I talked about blended learning a little bit, developing effective online learning environments using different teaching pedagogies, and lastly, facilitating online interaction. Thank you very much for listening. And now, do you have any questions?
Yes? Thank you very much, Professor Nagwa. You were just on time and you still had a minute or so. I would like the attendees to please write down their questions so that we take them all at the same time. So please, those that have questions, can you put them in the Q&A or prepare to say out your questions through the microphone? Otherwise, this presentation has been excellent, especially the focus on the principles for good practice and going through a number of scholars and the work that they've done to guide the principles for good practice undergraduate education. And one feedback that I also took is that when we're developing effective online courses or an effective online environment, we need to remember to inform, to guide, to provide feedback, to assess, and how we retain the students, especially in online and blended types of teaching. And of course, you covered the different teaching pedagogies in an excellent manner. And I also enjoyed the role taking, so that the facilitator or the designer of the content puts themselves in different roles in order to be able to effectively design online or blended courses. Then it was also exciting, most exciting to hear about the various forms of online interaction and the different forms that this online interaction can take, whether it's student with the content or student with the teacher, etc. So it's been an exciting presentation.
Thank you very much.
Sure we will get engagement from the attendees, and I will also extract some of the questions that I see coming in the chat. It's a pleasure. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening.
Nagwa Solomon.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes. Our next speaker, if they can get ready, please, is Dr. Nesma Hesham Mansour, who is an assistant lecturer responsible for teaching and learning coordination in the English division within the British University in Egypt. The presentation will focus on micro-learning and particularly strengthening blended learning courses. Dr. Nesma, I hope you are ready. Thank you very much. So you can share your screen if you have slides. You are most welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and I would like to thank Dr. Negwa for such a beautifully organized presentation. And I would like to take you through a journey that I've been investing lots of energy and time investigating. And it has to do with what we call microlearning. So today my focus will be about taking you through what is being reflected from some of our students, which is sometimes they look like this. And the feedback that I've got from some of them was that they felt overwhelmed because of the amount of tasks that they are engaged with, the requirements that they are expected to achieve at a very limited time, and the tons of expectations that we have from them when it comes to commitment and really meeting the requirements that we give within our courses. So I would like to ask all of the attendees to put on the hat of the student for a little bit, because I have noticed that we became subject experts to an extent that when we put on our courses, we tend to think in the way we would love to take such a course. And thinking from this perspective has made it very hard to some students to cope up with what is required. So I would love to take you through their minds at some point and ask
Dr. Neswa,
yes.
Can you just disconnect and reconnect your headsets? There's
Yes,
some sound that's coming, but just disconnect and reconnect. Yeah, thank you.
Is it better?
Yes, yeah.
So again, let me start my presentation with a very short note that I've noticed that when we've moved from the classroom to engaging more and more and creating blended learning courses, I've noticed that we're still doing, or some of us are still doing it in the macro fashion way, which entails that that we are simply going through lectures, giving PowerPoints to our students through our online lectures, focusing more and more on the content, giving it in big chunks. And that's why my presentation today is telling you that I would love to give you a hint that researchers now are considering giving this big chunks, but in what we call micro-learning fashion. So micro-learning is not something new. However, the way we apply it nowadays is of very importance, and that's what I'm going to discuss with all of you. So today I'm going to tell you what is micro-learning, how to incorporate it within our blended learning courses. I'm going to also share with you some of the technological tools that can help you create micro-learning lessons and identify the future research areas that I've been digging around and noticing that people are applying when it comes to, or researchers are applying when it comes to research. So let me define to all of you micro-learning. And this is a very nice definition that I've been very much fond of, because it actually summarizes every point that microlearning has to include. It is an instructional unit. And by this, I need you to notice that what I mean by an instructional unit, that it can stand by itself, that this unit will achieve one desired outcome. Then it is said by Karl Kopp that it is a short engagement. And by short, I mean that it does not have to last more than 30 minutes. No, 30 minutes is a big deal. Short. And some of the researchers, when it comes to microlearning, are defining short differently. However, the concept of short is concentrating on the main concept that you want to deliver. And then he did not only stop and say that it is short, but it is an engaging experience. And that's why during a very short limit of time, you are engaging your student in an activity that is intentionally designed. And here I'm going to stop and ask you again to remember that we are wearing the hat of the students for a little while. And this means that we are looking beyond the image that we are used to into creating something that is effective, giving what we need at a very short time. And it is intentionally designed for you as designers to reach this specific point and elicit a specific outcome. And that's my main focus for today. So we all have our learning objectives set and planned. But today I'm going to take you through how to plan or to really see through your learning objectives. Look beyond this image of I want to achieve 1, 2, 3, and see if I can take such a learning objective and make it a bit short, a bit to the point, a bit done in a different way than lecturing that is done through lectures over online. And then again, Karl Kopp was very much interested in saying that we're not making them learners anymore, we're moving them to the stage of being a participant, an active participant. So let me tell you what is being discussed when it comes to how to incorporate microlearning into your own environment. So my main target is that I need to focus on what the learner can learn, achieve, understand, but also what he can remember or what he needs to remember. I need to provide information that can support his performance at some point in time, which means that performance support. So maybe I'll be creating during the process of creation a video, a tailor-made exercise through the challenge that I'm going to discuss in a very short while about how to support his performance in doing such a task. Maybe adaptive learning, which has to do with personalizing your learning to cater to different learners who are a bit of a higher level or needs more help to reach such a higher level. So again, micro-learning has to do with, yes, you are creating materials, but how about tailoring these materials to reach these outcomes? So how can we do this? The answer is in a simple 3-staged process. And I will tell you, start by looking at your learning outcomes. And now I will tell you, stop at this point, gather your team and sit together, look through your learning outcomes and ask yourself, can we take some of these learning outcomes and put it in small chunks and to be able to align it to our audience needs to reach the previously mentioned targets? And if you can pinpoint the learning outcomes that can be put in such a context, that's step number 1. Step number 2, I will be requesting you that when you create the content through the different technological tools that I will be pinpointing now, you can create it from scratch, or I will be advising you to start looking for a borrowing technique where sometimes you look for an infograph or a video that expresses your point and maybe amend it to meet your learning objective. And then the last phase for microlearning to actually take the process you want to achieve is to experiment it right away and to adjust what you have out of content by collecting feedback. And the feedback can be gotten from the students themselves or your team, the ones that are actually teaching and building microlearning materials. So let me give you a quick hint on what I mean by the different types of microlearning content and pinpoint some of the apps that I've tried myself that I found very much helpful in creating what I want to achieve. So sometimes we go to YouTube that looks like containing the content that we want to project to our students. But during the microlearning phase, I would urge you, designers and educators, to think about creating your own. And I would be introducing you to a program called Lumen 5. And Lumen 5 is an application that is done for
معلش يا دكتور أنا بحاول أنا مش عارفة إزاي أوطي الصوت.
Excuse me please, can everyone else mute except Dr. Nesma Hesham, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, Lumen 5 is a very interesting application that allows you to write upon your script, the one that you have written by yourself, the one that meets your learning objective, and they will help you create a video using all the required what we call pictures and sounds, and tailor-made it to your students. This is a very interesting program. So instead of looking for videos, why not designing your own? And another one is Explain Everything. And it has to do with you creating small micro lecture, and it will help you or guide you through with a number of explanatory ways of how to really minimize a very big content into a very small one. Another way that I've tried myself has to do with you sometimes need to create on-the-go concepts. So for example, you want your students to be engaged in the creation process of a concept that they will need to be aware of and to actually apply. And this is where some of the apps come around. One of them is Sheg flashcards, and it has to do with creating flashcards to a big concept. And I've actually tried this in my classes, and I was not the creator. I only created the prompt, and I've asked my students to take it, to dig deep in the concept, which is researching, and to create flashcards for it and share it with the rest of the class. And it was really good, giving them the lead, and at some point them engaged, as we agreed, creating a micro lesson that will be remembered across for a very big fat concept. And a VoiceThread and EdApps again allow you to create small content. However, they give you the edit option of adding your own comments and feedback during the process of the lesson going around. Another concept which has to do with case studies and simulations, and even getting your students to work together, I will be urging all of you, because we are now looking for students' engagements, or what we call participants' engagements, to think about Flipgrid and Miro. Miro is a real board that gives you real-time board that gives you the idea that you can create a case study or a simulation and put your class in groups and ask them to go through the case study and solve it together. So in 20 minutes of class time, instead of you are lecturing about the concept, you've created it in a form of a case study. Your students are engaged for full 20 minutes, because they are the participants, they are the ones doing all the learning or benefiting from it, and actually learning with fewer help and guide from you. And Flipgrid has to do with creating your own videos, which can reflect on you answering specific questions. So one of my tricks is that sometimes pre-class, I would give students a question, and I would ask them to search it and to answer this question using recordings that they will be doing and on their own, and it was marvelous. So Flipgrid was a way to do that.
May I interrupt you? Please. You have 5 minutes now. Thank you, Dr. Nesma.
I'll move quickly. One of the good things to actually try are infographics. Infographics are just giving you the information that you need to give about the specific point. It is done in different shapes and sizes, and you can find it in different programs that are being provided, like Canva and Spark Adobe, and they always give you varieties that you can use and create an infographic about a history lesson that you want to give, tracing back a process. So instead of you giving it, it's actually creating an infographic, and maybe your students contribute in the process of making it. I will end today's presentation asking you to take what I've given you into research. And me going through this phase, I would tell you that I've read the current research studies, and I found that researchers are more lean into looking for applying microlearning in terms of different learning theories like the behaviorism, the constructivism, connectivism, and learning domains like cognitive domain, like affective domain, like psychomotor domain. And I would love if you would take the chance and look for these studies, and I can share some of what I've got, and actually implement all the intake. And that's the promise that I need to take from all of you attendees, that you will be taking it through and trying to apply parts of it in your upcoming semester, and maybe document what you have researched into new research studies. Thank you so much for attending my presentation. Over to you.
Thank you again for another excellent presentation from Dr. Nesma Hisham Mansour. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Correct.
My apologies if I am not.
No,
I've thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 presentations, particularly the way that the speakers present and the way they speak, and the quality of the slides, and also the quality of the information and the research that is being shared. So Dr. Nesma, thank you so much for enlightening us on microlearning and how we can use it for students to get very good experiences when they engage in our blended learning courses. And the reason why we must consider this is because we are overwhelming the students. And sometimes we don't notice that the load that we are giving them makes them not to be successful. So we must remember to keep it short, and we must remember that microlearning can be used to achieve the same outcomes that we want to achieve, but we need to think about what the students need to learn in small sizes, not to deliver it to all together at the same time. So the presentation you made, or your paper, also focused on how we can actually practically incorporate microlearning, and you also successfully took us through the 3 phases of a process to integrate microlearning. And thank you for educating us about the types of microlearning and the different tools that are available to practically implement this. And I think you concluded with a call for us to reflect on the future of microlearning and also engage in research, engage in actually trying it out, and then sharing our findings with the rest of the academic community. So congratulations, Dr. Nesma. And I would like to call upon the participants again to write their questions in the Q&A or note it down in your notebook so that when we ask you to open your microphone to actually ask your question, you can do that. It's a pleasure for me to present the next presenters. I think they will do a joint presentation. The two presenters that will conclude this session are Dr. Mevat Shukri, who is an associate professor in the Department of English Language and Literature, Faculty of Arts and Humanities at the British University in Egypt. He or she will be supported by Miss Salma Al-Sadi, assistant lecturer also in the same department and the same university. Their presentation will focus on Shakespeare in blended learning mode, examining its effectiveness at the British University in Egypt during the COVID-19 pandemic. My apologies, Dr. Mevat Shukri.
Yes.
You are a she, and my apologies. Yes. I thought I didn't know. Yeah, thank you so much. So I would like to ask you now to make your presentation. It's 14 minutes to 12, so you will finish around 8 minutes past 12, so that we then get time to make to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darami. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, well, this presentation is going to be it's shared between me and Ms. Salma Sadi. We are both doing it together. While Ms. Salma will be now assisting with sharing the screen. We've split the presentation, in two. I'll be taking the first part, and Ms. Salma will be continuing with the implementation section. So we're dealing with Shakespeare. We have the Shakespeare module, all right, for our students. Something happened, probably. Yes, all right.
Okay.
All right. So it's Shakespeare in blended learning mode, examining its effectiveness at the British University in Egypt during COVID-19 pandemic. Now moving to the outline, for the basic outline for the presentation, we have four main basic points. We have the definitions of blended learning, and using the abbreviation, of course, throughout the slides as BL. So we have the BL objectives. We have the selected blended learning model that we actually chose to design the module on. Then we have the implementation tool and the practical part of all the interactive activities and methods that we used with the students, whether online or offline. We start with the definitions of blended learning. Well, we're of course dealing with the most commonly used and cited and focused definitions of blended learning. We got two of the main ones, which are Graham's in 2006, which states that blended learning systems combine face-to-face instruction with computer-mediated instruction. And we have Krasnova's as well. It's a method of teaching that combines the most effective face-to-face teaching techniques and online interactive collaboration, both constituting a system that functions in constant correlation and forms a single whole, which is what we designed the blended learning model on the Shakespeare module. Now, why are we using, or why did we use the blended learning model? Well, blended learning is quite most updated and recent global, let's say, technological means for teaching, and not just teaching, is basically for learning that focus on students. Now, the main blended learning reasons for using blended learning is that it's mostly focusing and targeting student-centered approach. All the developments in the second one, in education technologies, it's growing very fast, and every now and then we get new things, new tools by which to integrate things and implement them in our courses or the modules. And of course, our final one, which is the pandemic, that led educators all over the world to try to restructure all the teaching strategies in order to adapt to that situation, whereby face-to-face classes are not there all the time. And at the same time, it is much better to have that blended learning style, whereby students go for online things and face-to-face teaching or instructions or whatever. Now, why do we use blended learning? Now, there are specific objectives for blended learning that allows us to use them and assist in designing our model. We have the benefits of integrating for more than one approach, which is the face-to-face one and the online through having synchronous and asynchronous tools. We focus the second one, which is focusing on students rather than teacher-centered approach. The most important thing is how to focus on students. It is for the students' benefit that they learn, all right, through a student-centered approach with guidance from, let's say, the teachers or the doctors or whoever. Then one of the most important things is addressing differentiation. And this is one of the things that has always been the focus in the British University in Egypt, in our teaching on how to address differentiation, whereby a class has, of course, students with different abilities. And over the past years, that's been an increasing point to attend to and address. But also the objectives of blended learning also creates different channels for feedback. There are so many things whereby, or so many tools, so many software, tools whereby we could pass on feedback to students as well. And the last one we're focusing on is the student participation. It is very important that student participation gets increased, whereby students bring out or show out and produce, creative things. So it increases their productivity, it increases their creativity, and also it addresses their need towards participation, motivating the students to participate. So through blended learning, that has been a really good method. All right. Now, how to choose this, to select the blended learning model. So there are mainly 4 models, which are the rotation model, flex model, a la carte model, and enriched virtual model. I'll just refer to them very quickly for the time factor. Now, the rotation model, all right, it usually works on stations, all right, whereby you have rotating stations, whether you have the station rotation model where you have groups of students working together at one station, finishing a task, and once it is completed, they move to another one until they finish all the given tasks. We have the lab rotation model, which also works on the same rotational stations, but inside a lab. We have the flipped classroom model, which actually it changes, or let's say it flips the traditional mode between classroom time and between homework time, where students perform certain tasks pre-class, before coming to class, and some other tasks in class, and then after class activities. So it works well with that. And we have been applying the flipped mode or the flipped model, the BUE, for a couple of years, actually, working on different modules regarding using actually the flipped mode. Then we have the enriched, the a la carte mode. Well, and the a la carte mode functions actually on a larger scale, based on certain schedules set by the university program, whereby students could attend one class online and another, one module online and another module offline. So whereby they can integrate things together. So it has different modules, all right, to do either online or offline. The last one is the enriched virtual module, which blends both the face-to-face and the online together. Now, the key features that we found most suitable for the blended learning module actually, on which to design the module are 4 main features: students' individual pace, collaboration, achieving the ILOs of the module, and facilitating feedback. Next slide, please. Yes. For the Shakespeare module, we focused the design for the blended learning and on the ILOs. We have 4 main ILOs that have been implemented here, or actually addressed here: understanding Shakespearean terms and concepts, critical textual analysis, the lucid expression of ideas, and how to perform a Shakespearean role play. So for these, we use the blended learning model, the bringing together the flipped rotation model, because students had to do certain work, certain tasks before class, in class, and after class, together with the enriched virtual model that blends the face-to-face, because it's both together, face-to-face and online, as is seen in the images. Now, very briefly, those 2 models that have been blended together are the flipped and the enriched virtual model. So the flipped classroom model, all right, puts actually online coursework and lectures together, and the teacher's use of class time for guidance, whereby class time is not used to keep delivering lectures, but the students come in already reading things and whatever is expected of them to prepare as tasks. So they would come to class whereby we would have discussions and we would have any elaboration, guidance on activities and so on, plus what they do afterwards. For the enriched virtual model, now it allows the students to do most of the work as coursework and so on, online at home or wherever, off campus, but they do attend face-to-face sessions, required face-to-face sessions that are important for social interaction in class and program. They could come, for example, not every day. So it could be once a week, it could be twice a week, and the rest would be done online. So whereby this is how we designed the blended learning method or model for the Shakespeare module. All right, I will leave the floor to Ms. Salma Saadi to start explaining our implementation tools, the ones that we actually implemented during our classes, whether the online and offline ones, face-to-face ones. So Ms. Salma, please, if you continue, the floor is yours.
Yes. Hello,
congratulations for sticking to time. She has 10 minutes to complete the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now for the implementation tools that we used in designing this flipped enriched virtual model for Shakespeare's module, we had to consider 2 things. Now, first of all, since the start of COVID-19 pandemic, of course, more interactive tools have been introduced to enrich students' learning experience. Okay, these are some of the applications that have been introduced to students, especially after the pandemic. We have already used them before, but they're being used even more by educators because of the current situation. Now, the implementation tools have 3 main goals. They're used for e-learning, to share material with the students and to use the e-learning. They're used for designing activities, whether asynchronous or synchronous activities or project-based tasks, which we're going to discuss, and also for giving feedback. Now, the e-learning, we use the e-learning or the Moodle Learning Management System as a platform to share the weekly readings, the videos and resources for our students. You can see a picture of our e-learning page on the right. For their pre-class tasks, because we've mentioned before that we're using the flipped mode, therefore students are required to perform certain tasks before class. And in class, whether online or on campus, we use the e-learning to follow up as a follow-up to share ILOs, to share relevant material, whether lecture notes or PowerPoints and so on. And we also use the e-learning for post-class activities and Q&A forums. The second aspect for which we use implementation tools in this design is to design online and offline activities in addition to assisting in the role play project. Now, while designing activities, we really have to consider the variety of activities that we use. And we have to consider, again, that these activities need to be both to respect the pace of each student, and at the same time, they need to be designed as to encourage collaboration. That's why we designed both synchronous and asynchronous activities. By synchronous activities, we mean activities that take place at the same time. Students collaborate or work together at the same time while working on an activity. This allows students to feel connected to each other during class, and it can provide instant feedback on spot because we're interacting to their activities instantly. Students also follow along with the teachers, and whenever they have question in real time, they share it with us in class. So it's very close, similar to in-class interaction. In asynchronous activities, students can learn at their own pace. Like, for example, in forums, this is an asynchronous activity. And it allows students more flexibility to learn at their own pace, at the most suitable time zone, because students could be in different places during the, after class, I mean. And teachers can include a range of student-paced learning tools and give feedback accordingly, and it could be the detailed feedback. And we're going to discuss this later. And there is a less chance for technical difficulties, so we can use asynchronous mode for more in-depth activities that might require a lot of time. So again, it depends on the feasibility of whether we use this or that. And while designing implementation tools for the model, we had to consider both. Examples, now I'm giving you examples of some of the activities that we have implemented in this module. For example, the first activity is the Globe Theatre terms. The aim for this activity was to introduce terms related to Shakespeare's Globe Theatre to the students. And for this activity, we implemented both synchronous and asynchronous tools. You can see on the left that this is Padlet. And on the right, it is a Shakespeare's Globe app. How exactly did we implement it? These were the steps. We shared with the students a set of colorful cards via Padlet that have terms and dates related to Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. Then we assigned each student a specific card to look for. So students had to search for information written on their assigned card, then post them on a collaborative Padlet that we shared with them by Microsoft Teams, because this was an online class. So you can see here, this is their collaboration together. And then we had a discussion. Students, while they were explaining their findings and shared it with the rest of the discussion, there was time for for us to give them instant feedback and to try to answer their questions and so on. After class, again, this is flipped. So after class, students download a virtual simulation app to explore the Globe Theater. You can see the app on the right side. It is actually very interesting because it's a 3D model of the Globe Theater. So students are really allowed to explore the Globe Theater in a real life simulation. If they click on the red arrow, it takes them inside of the Globe Theater, and they can keep moving around. And if they click on one of the arrows, they're going to have a pop-up sidebar, giving them more in-depth information about this term or about this date related to the Globe Theater. And this application is for free. And it has additional features which are not for free, but at least these ones are for free. And it's very engaging for students. Another app is Flipgrid Forum, which Dr. Nisma. Again, for this activity, okay. I'm so sorry for the technical problem.
Okay, mate.
Okay.
It's fine.
I apologize.
No problem. You have 3 minutes or so now.
Yes, I'm almost
Thank you.
I'm almost done. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so the previous activity was the Flipgrid forum. A question was posted. Forum question was posted using Flipgrid app, and students were invited to record a 2 to 3 minute video to respond to that question. And the aim was to encourage students to express their views and impressions about the comedy of errors. I'm just going to move to the third activity was, okay. Another activity was the vocabulary jam. Again, this is a game-based activity, and its aim was to test their knowledge of the Shakespearean vocabulary used in the plays they're studying. So we created this vocabulary jam using vocabulary.com. A key was shared with the students via Teams to join, and they competed against each other in class. So this is a synchronous activity that we used. And we announced the winning team. Another activity that was used in class, and we referred to the fact that we were using the flipped mode. So, and using the enriched virtual mode. So students come to class basically for follow-up with the teacher. This was, in this activity, we made use of the round tables in the classroom setting. And we wanted to make sure that students understood the flow of the plot and what happens to each character. We gave them the Shakespeare scorecard, and I've actually shared the source here. And they were divided into groups. Each group was assigned a character in the play, and then they had to draw these symbols that you can see on the scorecard. These numbers refer to different acts throughout the play. They had to draw the symbols that expressed what happened to each character throughout the play. And again, this gave the floor for open discussion in class. Now, Dr. Mirvat is going to share with us the role play performance.
All right, well, I'll be very brief. The role play performance is actually, it's where students perform one of the scenes, one of the Shakespeare's plays that they study. It's actually based on having students. I'm not sure there's something wrong probably with the internet, the connection of Miss Salma. So the other slide doesn't show. Oh yes, all right. This is one of the, it's a picture actually of the actual role play of a group of the students. And what they do, I mean, the aim of this activity is to measure their ability to collaborate together in performing a scene from a play, whereby they could express their ideas clearly, logically, and fluently. So it was made of a group of 2 to 3 students, and they choose or they select actually a scene with the guidance of the module leader. So they would know, I mean, how to do it. They know, it shows their, I mean, how they understand Shakespeare's characters, how they understand Shakespearean language, and how these are interpreted throughout the performance. Can you have the next slide, please, Ms. Salma? This is also another one where from students who were performing part of Shakespeare's The Tempest. The previous one was from The Taming of the Shrew. This one is from The Tempest. As you can see, one of them tried to dress like Prospero. And this is, I mean, they used to, I mean, they rehearse, they learn how to do it, they get guidance on it, and then they come to perform. They follow the reflective cycle, Gibbs reflective cycle, whereby this is like a reflective talk that follows the performance, and after that they get questions and are evaluated via a rubric. So it is a two-way thing whereby they perform and they show their understanding of the play, of Shakespeare's language, of Shakespeare's characters, and at the same time following the cycle of the reflective talk, whereby they can express and give their opinion also if they were in place of those characters, how would they react? All right.
Okay.
Now, feedback, Ms.
Okay,
Salma,
when it comes to feedback, this is just going to take 1 minute. When it comes to feedback, again, there are different applications that we use to give students feedback. Turnitin is used by instructors all around the world to actually give students feedback on their writing, whether in using the rubric or it's used for detailed feedback, individual feedback. And we can also record voice notes for students to give them feedback through e-learning. And we've already discussed the importance of e-learning as a platform for feedback using Microsoft Teams during online classes. And Flipgrid has an option of responding to students' short videos in response to a question. We can actually respond by recording a short video ourselves to respond to students, or through a generic rubric that is already on Flipgrid. Finally, it's really important to receive feedback for students to assess whether our designed model did work or not, and whether we need to do adjustments with our activities and so on. We use 2 apps for this. We use Microsoft Forms, and we used Poly, which can also be embedded in Microsoft Teams. We created polls for students to receive feedback regarding their favorite activity, the timing, and so on. So you can use these to receive feedback, because again, blended learning is about collaboration. It's about communication. If we don't get feedback from students, if we don't learn from what we receive from students, communication is not going to be valid. The implementation of, okay.
Okay, I think we've run out of time.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. If you could wrap up, please. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So to wrap up, the implementation of this model enhanced the achievement of the module ILOs, as you can see in the following slide. And to conclude, the flipped enriched model allowed for flexible adaptability of students' needs, increased teacher-student communication in different modes, whether face-to-face or online. Therefore, the flipped enriched virtual model could benefit educators to achieve the model ILOs beyond literature in different teaching contexts. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Mevett Shukri. And Miss Salma Al-Sadi, I think you were an excellent team in terms of the presentation of your paper. And your paper was exciting because it gave us a real life experience of how blended learning has been used to teach Shakespeare. So I also learned that it's very important for us to be able to show these case studies so that others who are struggling with how to use blended learning in their own circumstances can actually practically learn from those that have done it. So thank you for presenting the various tools to support blended learning and reminding us why we are implementing blended learning. I think many times we forget that the focus is students, so whatever we do must be for the benefit of the student and for us to achieve our intended learning outcomes. The different blended learning models were also quite informative. I particularly was interested in the a la carte and the way that it's named. It makes one want to learn more about what is really involved. And I also liked the selection of the tools that participants can take away and also go and explore, such as Padlet, Kahoot, Flipgrid. Thank you very much for pointing us in that direction, and also accommodating the different paces of the different students. I think many times we make the mistake of a one size fits all, and then it defeats the whole process because different students learn very differently. So I would like to congratulate you most sincerely for your exciting paper. I think I'm extremely impressed so far by the scholars that are coming from the British University in Egypt. And I was just thinking, how can the rest of the universities in Africa benefit from your experiences in terms of implementation of blended learning? So without much ado, thank you so much. I'll now go to the Q&A, and I think I will ask the four panelists, the people that made presentations, to get ready to respond to these questions. And then I'm also inviting the participants to raise their hands so that we get some interaction during the Q&A session. We just have 12 minutes or so before closure. There was a question which says how to make my online teaching attractive. In my view, I think this question has been answered because it was asked at the very beginning, and the three presentations have attempted to show how to make online and blended teaching attractive through the use of the various tools, and also taking special care in terms of the design and how the student would interact with the content and the tools. There was also a comment from Professor Shadia. It wasn't a question. The comment was, truly innovation is needed in this hour of teaching. Traditional methods do need modification. Thank you. So I think that was an appreciation. There was a comment about whether these slides would be shared. I think I will ask Dr. Anand to address that as we close during the closing session. There was also a question on, can anybody help me install Moodle on TeamViewer? So this was a request for technical assistance. I think whoever is able to do that can respond in the chat. There was also a question or a comment on how do we as academics ensure that in the role taking, the discussion doesn't turn negative. I don't understand that question very well, so maybe I'll ask Dr. Nilma Jaisingan to actually ask the question. If his or her microphone could please be open, Dr. Nilma Jaisingan, if you could open your microphone and ask the question. Can he or she please be assisted? Thank you.
The mic of Dr. Nilma is already on, so I think she should be able to speak now.
Thank you. Dr. Nilma, are you ready? Okay, we can move over to Dr. Prashant Mehta. Dr. Prashant Mehta. If you could, yes, please. Can you please ask your question? Thank you.
No, there was only one question. I want to install Moodle on my PC. And second was, that is, what is the difference between blended and hybrid learning? Only two questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mehta. Can one of the panelists please respond? I'm not sure about the technical assistance question, but could someone just revisit the difference between blended learning and hybrid learning? Thank you. I don't know who would like to take that. Dr. Nagwa? Professor Nagwa? Yes, please. Thank you.
With blended learning, students meet face-to-face and they have classes online throughout the semester. With hybrid, they meet the first 2 weeks face-to-face, then the rest of the semester till the last 3 weeks online, and then they meet once again at the end of the semester, the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's not like blended where the students have a set of online classes, online lectures and face-to-face lectures throughout the semester. With hybrid, they meet at the beginning of the semester and the rest of the semester online, and then they re-meet once again at the end of the semester.
Okay, understood. Means blended is better for the school-going students and hybrid is for adults.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not at all.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I also have a question for Dr. Nesma. My question is also maybe to the whole team from British University in Egypt. I would like to know how this innovative way of teaching or delivering Is it something that's the norm within British University in Egypt? How do the different departments learn from your experiences? For example, what you are doing in the area of micro learning, is there a collaboration at an institutional level to ensure that these good practices are learned within the whole university? Because I see you all come from sort of the same faculty. Thank you.
So I'm actually in the business faculty, and we have initiated the idea, and within our teaching and learning committee, we've started to have our own set of training for trying to apply this. So again, I've started initiating the idea in our professional development plan for this year. And we have set already meetings to apply it. And I think by the end of this year, we'll be having much more reflection on the application, because we're going to start in the preparation phase for the upcoming semester. And by the end of the year, things will turn out to be best, if we can say it like this.
Okay, thank you so much. And then maybe a question to Dr. Mevat Shukri. I think throughout the three presentations, I noted that there are a diversity of tools that are being recommended. What is the strategy that the academics follow if they need access to specific tools? How is that whole issue of licensing the different tools handled by the university? Who decides, okay, we will subscribe to Padlet, we will subscribe to Kahoot? Is there some standardization in the area of the tools that are used to support blended learning? Thank you.
Thank you. There are two, things, or let's say two sides of a coin. You have some free apps that would help educators to use. And at the same time, there are other, when we have other things, like, for example, we have tools by which we give feedback, which have been mentioned in the presentation, like Turnitin, for example. This is something that the university subscribes to across the board, and it gives us the opportunity to use that for feedback with students, for students' submission of the material, whereby we can give them feedback, whether written feedback, whether recorded voice feedback. All right, and so there are let's say tools or applications or software that could be got online for free, and others that are supported by the university. And the university supports, whatever we do. If there is anything that is has copyright whereby we cannot use for free, then of course we don't use it. We go to the university. However, we use both. There are so many free, tools and software material, all right, that is found online, but we have to ensure that it is free, all right? And there are some of them also used via mobile phones, applications on mobile, whether it be the Android or the Apple one, iPhones. So there are different things which are even found all over. There are so many online ones, free ones, that the ones who actually set them or prepare them allow them to be used without any problem, but we need to check that online before we do that. The educators can just search for free online apps besides the apps that, of course, could be subscribed by the university. So both go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And then my last question goes to Miss Salma Al-Sadi. I think the case study of how you applied the blended learning for teaching Shakespeare was excellent. I'm interested in knowing how long did it take to sort of do that kind of project, and how many people were involved in order to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think how many people were involved? It was just Dr. Mirvet and myself. These were the people involved. And I think it takes a very good teamwork to collaborate on in everything. And I think how we designed the activities and how we implemented all of the details within the classroom and outside of the class depended on communication that we had as a team. We sat every single week, twice at least a week, to discuss and to design what we're going to do each and every single class. And inside each class, whether online or offline, we designed the activities that match the ILOs and so on. So I think it was because I had a very collaborative module leader and we worked together well as a team that we achieved this. And at the same time, it's also because we receive feedback from students. For example, we design activities sometimes and then we encounter technical problems. So we decide to have a plan B activity and a plan C activity to make sure that it works, because it doesn't work every time. So we always have to have plan A, B, and C, and to see how it works and to get feedback from students. So thank you, Dr. Mirvet.
Yeah, thank you so much. That I could tell that an amazing amount of teamwork had to actually take place, and that you needed many iterations to be able to do that. Unfortunately, we've
yes, because she was very cooperative. I mean, in whatever we worked as a team together. It was really enjoyable.
Yes, amazing. So I would like to congratulate our three speakers for excellent presentations. I've thoroughly enjoyed them. And then in conclusion, the key messages that I picked are that we really need to be student-centered in terms of our design of blended learning or online learning. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of the learner. Let's not be selfish and think about ourselves as the facilitator, but the people that we intend to benefit from this must be the center of it. I also picked that there are a diversity of tools now to support blended learning. It's up to us in terms of how brave are we to try things out, how creative are we willing to fail and try again, so that in the end we have very creative and innovative ways of engaging our students. From the point of view of the Association of African Universities, as you know, we are a network of over 400 universities in the continent. We are also very keen to understand the experiences and the knowledge that is resident within the continent, which can then be shared with the rest of the universities in Africa. Many times we tend to think there's nothing going on in the continent just because we don't know, but we have a high level of expertise that is in the continent, which can also benefit other academics elsewhere. So I would like to thank Bluecrest for doing this, because there's quite a wealth of knowledge that can benefit the rest of the continent. So thank you so much. I would like to hand over to Dr. Anand. I've enjoyed the session and I look forward to the rest of the presentations during the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nodumo. It was great to see how you chaired the session. You have given enough opportunities for everyone to speak, maintained the time, and also pointed out the major insights from each presentations and led a very good session of questions and answers and discussions after the presentation. So thank you, Ms. Nodumo, for this service to us. There's a question which is pending from Dr. Nilima, and the question is that we as academicians want to ensure when discussions goes on in the class, the discussion should not become negative. Now, Dr. Nagwa did a presentation where she talks about the skeptics in the discussion. So I think what Dr. Nilima wants to ask is how we ensure that when a skeptic is active in discussion, who is taking a role of someone like a devil's advocate, who is trying to point about some other perspectives which the whole class is missing. In that situation, there is a risk that discussion can become negative. So the question is for Dr. Nagwa, how we ensure that discussions doesn't turn negative?
Can I have my video on, please? I can't start it. It's from the host, it says. Please. Yes, thank you very much. Well, as I mentioned during my presentation, students, before we assign them the discussion, we should explain to them the rules of discussion and how they have to learn how to accept the other's point of view and to be open-minded. So before we start them on any role or discussion, teamwork discussions, they need to know the rules first, so that they so the discussion does not turn negative. The things like listening and accepting the other person's different point of view, and that negativity does not make us reach to anything. And so students need to be guided first on rules of netiquette and discussion, and how to debate an issue without turning it into a heated argument and heated discussion. By guidance, and if this is the case in one of the teams or groups, we can remind them with netiquette and how they are supposed to conduct a discussion and listen and be open-minded. I hope this answered the question or the query.
I hope so. I hope so, Dr. Nagwa. It was very thoughtful and a very well answered statement from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nagwa. I'm very impressed with the presentations by the presenters from this particular theme, Dr. Nagwa, Dr. Neshma Hasham, Dr. Mervat, and Dr. Salma Al-Sawi. So please accept congratulations from my side for making these good presentations. And
thank you.
I'm already asking Ms. Nodumo to send us the details, because we have the Best Presenter Award also for 2 presenters of the conference. And I'm very sure that the insights and learning we have obtained from your presentations will benefit all the participants here. There is a request coming consistently from the participants, is that they need some presentation PPTs or notes from the presenters, because they would like to go through that later on for enhanced learning. So I will request all the presenters, if possible, to please share by the email your PPTs, etc. And I will be broadcasting it to all the attendees later if possible. So that will be very good help for all the participants here. So thank you all the presenters. Thank you the session chief.
Thank you very much.
In case there's any other question, anybody wants to ask any question or make a comment, this is the time before we go to the next session. Anybody wants to share one of the good experiences related to the theme? The theme we are talking about is design, pedagogy, and practices in blended teaching and learning and online teaching and learning. Please feel free to raise your hands. We still have about 10 minutes time before we go for the next theme. Okay, so I think we should move on. Let me share my screen. So the next session chair we have here is Dr. Camilla. Dr. Camilla Swart is the Associate Professor in the newly established Master's Program in Sport and Entertainment Management. She will be chairing the session of Resources, Assessments and Evaluations in Online and Blended Teaching. So she is working with the College of Science and Engineering, Hamad bin Khalifa University, which is a joint degree university with the University of South Carolina in Qatar. She has served as professor and program director of the Masters in Sports Management in the College of Business Administration. And she was a colleague with me in American University in the Emirates from 2017 to 19. And this was the same time I also worked with the American University in the Emirates in Dubai. Prior to joining AUE, she headed the Center for Tourism Research in Africa, Faculty of Business and Management Sciences in Cape Peninsula University of Technology, CPUT, it's in South Africa. Her research interests include sport, tourism, and events, with a specific focus on mega events, event policies, strategies, monitoring and evaluation, sustainability, and women in sport. She has focused on contributing to sport, tourism, and event knowledge in the developing context and in the global South, in particular, in the South African region. She is a well-known personality. Dr. Camilla also serves as a Senior Research Associate, School of Tourism and Hospitality at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. She is a C3 National Research Foundation rated researcher, a very renowned researcher in the area of sports research in South Africa. And she has published over 50 peer-reviewed articles, 25 book chapters, and many conference presentations and technical reports related to sport tourism and mega events. I remember we started a project together when I was working with her in AUE about the pathway for cricket sports persons. But I don't know what happened after the project was started, but I hope Dr. Camilla is taking it forward. I would like to know more about it if she's listening to this particular statement. She also has co-authored the first US text on sport tourism in 2002 and co-edited 3 special issues on 2010 FIFA World Cup. She served as regional editor for the Journal of Destination Marketing and Management and was subsequently appointed as associate editor for the journal. She also serves on the editorial boards of journals like International Journal of Sport Marketing and Sponsorship and Alternation and Frontiers in Sports and Active Living. So I hope Dr. Camilla is here already. If not, okay. Also, we are actually a little bit ahead of time because the session is meant to be starting from 1 p.m. So we still have about 15 minutes. If the time permits, is it possible for us to take a break for about 15 minutes and come back?
Yes.
Because many of us are still sticking to the conference from the morning. We need some break. So let us take about 15 minutes break and come back. I hope by that time, Dr. Camilla will also join. So thank you. Let's get a break.